is Friday, October 2nd, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Israel beefs up its security presence in the West Bank after a Jewish settler couple is gunned down in front of 4 of their children. Speaking in front of the UN General Assembly, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemns the world for its silence over Iranian threats against Israel. And in the latest mass shooting in the United States, a gunman murders 9 people at an Oregon college campus before being killed by police. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi. Hectic morning, and we begin this morning in the West Bank, where Israel is sending large forces to try to locate the killers of a Jewish settler couple found dead last night in their vehicle near the city of Nablus. The manhunt is being focused on nearby villages where the perpetrators are thought to have come from. Some of the villages were closed off to facilitate the capture by the Israeli Defense Forces. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blamed the attack, claimed by the Fatah military wing, on Palestinian incitement, hinting that a speech by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas at the UN General Assembly earlier this week was what drove the attackers to carry out the attack. We are going to go live straight first to the West Bank, the occupied territories, where I-24 News senior where I-24 News correspondent Danny Swibel is standing by. Danny, good morning to you. You are at the location of this heinous crime. Do tell us what happened there last night.
The Fatah military wing claimed responsibility for an attack that saw 2 Palestinians come from a nearby village and gun down 2 parents in a car. 4 children were in the back seat and were unharmed, but were witness to the heinous crime. Behind me, you could see the scene of the crime right here. My cameraman's going to zoom in. You see 4 battalions currently deployed there. They're trying to keep settlers from protesting as well as assisting in the investigation. And you do have Shin Bet forces who have arrived on the scene as of late, who are continuing the ongoing investigation. Right now, to my right over here is the Palestinian village Bet Farouk, where the 2 Palestinians are believed to have come from and ran off into. And as it stands right now, the Israeli government is condoning this heinous act. And Netanyahu has actually criticized Abbas and saying this is part of his ongoing campaign of incitement to make these attacks happen. Education Minister Naftali Bennett reportedly said that this was Abbas's battle cry finally acted upon. So many people in the Israeli government and the defense establishment are saying this is yet another ongoing attack because of a Palestinian incitement. And this scene, as we see here, is near Nablus, which is considered a major launching pad for terror throughout the West Bank. And this is a major scene of violence in the Second Intifada.
Danny, you drove in this morning. You drove into the West Bank this morning. Are you feeling the presence? Did you see the massing of Israeli defense forces coming into the West Bank, into that area in the occupied territories?
Absolutely. There's security forces throughout the scene. All of our drive-in, heavy Israeli presence has been detected by us. And as it stands, us driving into the scene, we were stopped by many different forces because right now the investigation is happening throughout this area. And they're telling us to stay safe and keep our eyes out because as it stands, the 2 Palestinians who are reportedly behind the attack are still currently at large.
No, definitely. And as we mentioned, there were 4 children in the car where that couple was being found. Danny Swibel covering this throughout the morning. Many forces, Israeli Defense Forces, 4, I think, battalions amassing that area. Thank you. And as we continue, let's take a look at I-24 News correspondent Shai Ben Ari's report about this attack that happened several hours ago overnight in the West Bank.
Yet another deadly terrorist attack took place Thursday night, which resulted in the deaths of 2 Israeli citizens. Eitam and Naama Hankin, a Jewish couple in their 30s, were driving their car on a road between the settlements of Itamar and Alon Moreh in the northern West Bank when they were suddenly hit by gunfire from a passing vehicle. The couple were pronounced dead by medics who arrived at the scene of the incident. Their 4 children, including a 4-month-old baby, were also in the vehicle, but emerged physically unhurt. IDF forces scanned the area, but the perpetrators were able to evade capture, at least initially. A spokesman for the Hamas movement praised the attack, calling it heroic. Further south, in the Hankin family's hometown, the scene was an all too familiar one. We are here in the Jewish community of Neriah in the West Bank. This was the home of Eitam and Naama Hankin and their 4 children. Though the hour is well past midnight, the residents of this community have come and gathered at its entrance in a show of solidarity and mourning. Friends of the couple were all too willing to tell of the loss of their beloved neighbors.
I have no idea how I'm going to tell my children about this. It's not something that I can hide from them. It's not something that's far away from them. It's people that they saw 3 days ago exactly, that we ate a meal together for the holiday.
Eitam Hankin was a popular rabbi and teacher. The family was returning from a class reunion he had organized when they were gunned down.
Not many people knew them up close, but if you did, you would know a great man. I said before they were very intelligent people. They were learned in the Torah, in Jewish teachings, and they passed that on to their neighbors.
There was also anger here. These signs read Naaman Eitam, may God avenge their blood. Leaders of the settler community are not confused concerning where they lay the blame.
These terror attacks came about as a direct result of the climate of incitement induced by the Palestinian Authority. That is their goal.
Much has been said of the current stalemate between Israel and the Palestinians. Whether or not this status quo can be changed, Thursday's events are a reminder it continues to take its toll.
Joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Good morning to you. Senior Haaretz defense analyst Amir Oren. Good morning to you. And of course, Ali Waked, senior Middle East analyst for I-24 News. Good morning. I want to start with you, Amir Oren. What do we know at this stage when it comes to the investigation and the battalions amassing the area in the West Bank?
We don't know a lot. The forensic investigation is going on. Obviously, the Israeli authorities, and most especially the Shin Bet, domestic intelligence service, failed in foiling the attack, which means that there was no prior intelligence. So now they have to recreate. They are now operating full volume in trying to get to all their sources, both human intelligence and signal intelligence, in trying to do it. And of course, had there been such an attack by Jewish terrorists, they wouldn't have gone house to house, they wouldn't have cordoned off a settlement and tried to find it. But this time around, and especially as it managed to drive down Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the UN to the second spot, now the Shin Bet, which is under Netanyahu's direct supervision, is trying to find the murderers.
It's trying to find the murderers. Ali, I want to ask you, because Netanyahu already hinted at the point that this might be coming after the Abbas speech at the UN. Fatah's military wing claiming responsibility for this. Any other things that we're hearing from the Palestinian Authority this morning?
Fatah military wing did not take responsibility for the attack. A group that is identified with the Fatah might have taken attack. You know, Fatah is a supermarket in which you can find many actors,
many little groups.
Unlike Hamas, when it comes from their central spokesperson, and we know that this is Hamas. And immediately after this reclamation of the storm brigades of the Fatah took responsibility, I called every former militant of the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades, which is the official military wing of Fatah, and they denied categorically any connection to the attack, and they said that they are participating. Actually, former militants of Fatah military wing are now members of the security services, and they are now participating in the operation to try to reach those who carried out the attack. Saying so, it doesn't mean that Fatah militants are not involved in this attack, and we know that there is frustration among Fatah because of the situation, and we know that Hezbollah, for example, and Hamas are trying to recruit militants among Fatah in order to convince them and finance and orchestrate operation that might take place. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu accused the Palestinian Authority. The facts on the ground is that hundreds of Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants and not disciplined militants of Fatah are in the Palestinian Authority jails.
Undisciplined Fatah militants meaning what? Meaning people who want to see Abbas gone, who want to, destabilize?
People that are candidate to be once again willing to collaborate with Hezbollah, with Hamas, and with with Islamic Jihad in order to carry out attacks from the West Bank against Israeli targets. The Palestinian Authority as a whole is mobilized in order to try to reach this cell. The Palestinian Authority officially did not condemn the attack, and they will not condemn the attack, and there is no chance that the Palestinian Authority will condemn any attack that will take place in the West Bank against settlers. Yeah, the Palestinian Authority is still living under the Dawabshe affair and the burning of a whole family, and there is no chance in the political current circumstances that any Palestinian will ever condemn this attack. Still, the Palestinian Authority is leading all the operations that the IDF allowing the security service to do so in order to try to help in the investigation and to reach the perpetrators.
To reach the perpetrators, and as Amir Oren mentioned earlier on, we have this morning's newspaper, that's Haaretz, one of the leading newspapers, you're working for it, Haaretz newspaper, where this is leading actually the news. We've got a couple murdered a settler couple murdered in an attack next to in the West Bank near Nablus. This is Frontline. This is Benjamin Netanyahu at the UN yesterday.
And that's good. In other newspapers, in the two big newspapers in Israel, in the Haaretz, at least Netanyahu is above. When you're a print editor, there's above the fold and behind the fold. In the two big newspapers in Israel, more tabloid style, Yediot Achronot and Israel Hayom, Netanyahu's speech is under the fold. You do not know that, and definitely, I think Netanyahu is ambivalent about this attack. On the one hand, it pushed him off the headlines, but on the other hand, it does emphasize and strengthen and embolden his claim that Israel is for peace, one that we heard yesterday at the UN, that Israel is for peace and the Palestinians are the ones inciting. But does this help us move any closer to anything? No, it actually creates a very dangerous situation because I think two main concerns at this moment in the Israeli government. A, we hear a wave of right-wing politicians calling for a strong Israeli response, and what would that be? Settlement expansion. That is what the right-wing politicians are calling for. And B, if there is any kind of, God forbid, retaliation attack from the extreme right in Israel, then definitely things could create a spiral of events that could be very devastating to this whole very tense situation to begin with, where against a backdrop of very tense days in Jerusalem as well.
Now, this is leading us to exactly what came under the fold, so to speak, and that is Netanyahu. Because last night attack came short hours after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered his annual address to the UN General Assembly. The speech focused mainly on the Iranian threat, also touched on the prospects of peace with the Palestinians, which, as we know this morning, is looking so far away more than anything else. Let's begin, though, with taking a look at Daniel Ziri's I-24 News correspondent in New York report about Netanyahu's UN speech, a very dramatic one, as we will see shortly. Let's take a look.
No surprises. Benjamin Netanyahu chose to focus his UN General Assembly speech around the Iran nuclear deal.
Ladies and gentlemen, check your enthusiasm at the door. You see, this deal doesn't make peace more likely. By fueling Iran's aggressions with billions of dollars in sanctions relief, it makes war more likely.
The Israeli Prime Minister made clear Israel will not allow the Islamic Republic to join the nuclear weapons club and reiterated his country's commitment to defending its people. But Netanyahu also pointed a finger at the UN and gave the General Assembly the silent treatment, literally. Almost a minute of awkward standstill meant to illustrate the UN's lack of action in the face of Iran's threats on Israel.
Iran's rulers promised to destroy my country, murder my people. And the response from this body, the response from nearly every one of the governments represented here, has been absolutely nothing. Utter silence. Deafening silence.
Netanyahu also responded to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's speech from the day before and said he was ready to resume peace negotiations right away.
President Abbas I know it's not easy. I know it's hard. But we owe it to our peoples to try.
Shortly after the address, the Israeli Prime Minister met with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and is also scheduled to meet with US Secretary of State John Kerry on Friday.
We're going to go live now straight to New York, where we're joined by Daniel Aziri, I-24 News correspondent there. Daniel, you were in that UN General Assembly hall. Very dramatic moment, but people were confused when the Israeli Prime Minister held his breath.
Yeah, actually, people were very confused. You know, it was not something, as you say, natural. I can tell you that I was upstairs, in the gallery, and in the gallery, the atmosphere was very different than the one that we saw down in the actual room where he was speaking. In the actual room, we had really an empty room. Delegations had left towards the end of Alexis Tsipras' speech, who was speaking just before Benjamin Netanyahu. And upstairs, we had Jewish leaders who were really proudly waiting for him to come up on stage, and they were applauding every sentence. So it was two very different atmospheres. When there was that silence, people really sort of looked at each other and weren't sure whether we should go and help the Prime Minister, who was maybe having a heart attack, someone said next to me. So very, very strange, until we understood really what he was trying to do.
No, and in that respect, I think many people watching also are wondering, you said, though, really quickly, that the hall itself wasn't that full, was it?
The point was really to sort of mark the silence and show that that was the sort of point to make, in terms of saying the UN was silent for Israel. So really, it took a while for people to really understood what was
going on. But then, the point being in front of an almost empty hall. I want to thank you, Daniel Aziri, for joining us from New York this morning. Tal Shalev, there he stands on that stage. We were looking for, everybody was expecting a dramatic antic. We've seen placards in the past. We've seen ducks. At this stage, though, the agenda was Iran. People were saying that the United States was hoping to hear a different tone from him, but it was the same tone. What can be achieved? Was it, though, the same tone?
I think it was the same tone, and also it showed Netanyahu traditionally arrives late to the UNGA party because of the Jewish holidays. But this time he was also a bit tad off topic because everyone was talking about Syria. He was still talking about Iran. But in a way, and that has also been how the prime ministers, some of the prime minister's aides have been briefing, in a way, it was the post-Iran deal speech which concluded the Iran deal, one chapter in Netanyahu's fight against the Iran deal, because he did talk about the day after. And he had practical calls for the international community how to adjust to this post-Iran deal era. He urged the international community to make sure that Iran is complying to by the agreement and doesn't put things under the Persian rug, in his words. But two things might be said. A, the tone was lecturing. It was condescending. Netanyahu was lecturing the international community throughout the whole speech. You should do this, you should do that, the UN should do this, the UN should do that. And B, I found it very peculiar. Netanyahu dedicated a significant part of his speech to talking about the U.S. and the unshakable alliance with the U.S., which was also a sign that he is preparing for his meeting today with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, in which finally they will be discussing some kind of security compensation for Israel. But also, I think peculiarly, he brought up the Congress speech, which I thought was just very rude. I mean, you just finished it was also not very smart, but you just finished a battle in which you lost, but you just finished a very vicious battle with the administration, and at the same minute you praise the administration, you move on to reminding the very harsh division you had with the administration throughout the whole summer.
Yes.
It was very disappointing because it's, again, a triumph of style over substance. It's as if Netanyahu is preparing for the long play record of Netanyahu's greatest speeches. He thinks of two main audiences. His domestic audience, obviously, and this came just before the primetime news and the Jewish American audience, and he uses all the cliches and all the punchlines that Jewish Americans like to hear, but actually could be turned against him. So it's deja vu all over again, but so is your speech. And if it walks like a duck and so forth, that's you too. So it's very unfortunate that he didn't use this occasion to come up with a bold political program to advance Israel to the achievement of its national goals and mostly a secure peace. And again, another missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity in your mind. Many, pundits this morning in the Israeli press are saying that. Ali Waqid still with us when it comes to the Palestinian Authority. They're listening to this. Avi Sakharov, an Israeli Arab affairs analyst, sat in the studio yesterday and said that he thinks something is going on behind the scenes, that actually Abbas stood on that stage a day before Netanyahu and in some ways was waiting for Netanyahu to open the door. And people will say that Netanyahu did yesterday. He was talking about that the Palestinian-Israeli peace.
Yeah, we said that Palestinians received signs from the EU that behind the scene in Israel there are talks to see a reshuffle in the Israeli government in which forces that are supporting the peace, which means the Labour Party, will come into the government on the base of relaunching once again a negotiation process with the Palestinian. This is one of the reasons that the President Abbas was demanded by the EU, US, Abdel Fattah Sisi and King Abdullah of Jordan to not mention any clear deadline to the moment where the Palestinian Authority will cease operating with the Oslo agreement. The problem, said the Palestinian, it's not with Benjamin Netanyahu partners. The problem is with Benjamin Netanyahu that is not willing to go for a serious peace process. And they say in reaction to his speech that the true Benjamin Netanyahu was a couple of days before the elections when he said that there will not be any Palestinian state when he is in post.
But as we know, the big talks are behind the scenes, as Tal Shalev always reminds me, and rightfully so, behind the scenes at the UN. We did hear those speeches, we did hear the silence. I want to thank you all for being with me this morning as we move along. Bad morning all around the world. Another deadly attack on the opposite side of the world. The lone gunman opens fire on a community college in southern Oregon, killing 9 people, wounding 7 others before police shoot him down and kill him. It's the latest mass killing to rock an American campus. The attacker, identified as 26-year-old Chris Harper Mercer, his motive still unclear. As in previous similar cases, the attack raised to the foreground the issue of gun control, an issue made all the more urgent in the lead-up to the 2016 presidential elections. This is what happened several hours ago in Oregon. Let's first take a look at the following report and break it down.
10:30 a.m., the frantic calls started coming in. An active shooter on the rural Oregon campus.
Copy, active shooter at UCC 1140 Umpqua College Road.
Within minutes, students inside Umpqua Community College were tweeting their terror. "Oh my God, there's someone shooting on campus," tweeted one. "Students are running everywhere. Holy God."
The teacher came running in and only told us to get inside the teacher's office and get down as fast as we could and drop everything.
1174 medical aid. This is for an active shooter at UCC.
Emergency vehicles flooded the scene. Radio traffic indicates the shooter was still firing.
This is going to be the Snyder Hall. Somebody is outside one of the doors, shooting through the door.
Amber Adams is a student at the school.
Shots were being fired. We heard shots and immediately took cover, went down, and heard just multiple shots going off, a lot of screaming.
Lori Reisner, another student, describes chaos.
A lady just went running by me crying, saying that there's an active shooter on campus. Everybody get into this hallway.
Authorities tonight saying the 20-year-old male shooter engaged in a shootout with police before being shot dead.
Code 4, suspect is down.
Our number one priority right now is to make sure that the scene is secure and the victims are treated, and making sure that we have a complete crime scene, and that we continue to make sure that there are no additional threats.
Students could be seen being let out of the school, their bags being checked by police. Canine units sweeping the campus, investigators establishing crime scenes. The college of about 3,000 students is in a rural area about 180 miles south of Portland, and it took some time for emergency officials to make sense of the scope of the carnage. At least 7 dead and 20 injured, according to an interview with state police by ABC affiliate KATU. The injured arrive on stretchers. A nearby hospital tweets, "We have received 9 patients from the UCC tragedy and 3 more en route. Please continue to pray."
The work that first responders have done is harrowing.
On the campus, students hugging, scenes of incredible grief.
In the coming days, we'll learn about the victims. Young men and women who were studying and learning and working hard, their eyes set on the future, their dreams on what they could make of their lives. And America will wrap everyone who's grieving with our prayers and our love.
Joined in studio by Ami Kaufman, I-24 News contributor. Ami, good morning.
Good morning,
Politicians in the United States reacting to this already, obviously.
Reacting to this, by the way, this is the 994th mass gun attack in the U.S. in 3 years since Obama was reelected in 2012.
And this needs to resonate. This is nearly 1,000
mass shootings since Obama was. It's almost a daily occurrence since Obama has been reelected. This Umpqua is the 294th mass shooting event in 2015 alone. So that really shows that it's almost it's almost more than a day. Every day.
No, definitely.
Some politicians are reacting, and it's pretty much, the usual thing. On the left, on the Democratic side, we have, we can show Hillary Clinton is calling for sensible gun control measures, saying we need sensible gun control measures to save lives, and I will do everything I can to achieve that. That's what she tweeted. Bernie Sanders Bernie Sanders went also to Twitter and said pretty much the same kind of thing. Well, let's take a look on the other side of the map and how conservatives also are doing their, usual thing. As we can see from Salon, basically not a lot of conservative Republicans went to Twitter, the guys who are running for president. Ben Carson reacted and said that it was the background check should be about mental health issues, but of course saying that everybody has the right to hold their guns. Let's see a few tweets about how Twitter is reacting, the conservative tweeters. Let's see this first one. Reminder, Democrats and the media want us unarmed and helpless and at the mercy of mass shooters, unconcerned with gun laws. But I think the next one with this picture really brings it home. Look at this guy who puts a picture of his gun on his waist and says, "You can whine about the UCC shooting victims or learn how not to be one. I'm going back to the range right now." I'm going back to the range right now. That pretty much sums it up. This is the majority.
I'm speechless. It's speechless. This is the majority of Americans.
This is the majority of Americans and how they think. This is why nothing is going to change in the near future, particularly when there is a political gridlock in Washington, D.C., especially when the Republicans took over the Senate in 2014, even when there are small, minor attempts to change just a bit, get some more background checks and stuff like that, nothing happens. You reach the gridlock.
And we need to remind people, Americans will say it's the right to bear arms in the Constitution that was written during the days of the Wild West.
Right.
And, in this day and age, when we're looking at the gunman, availability of guns in the U.S., that's the frightening thing. That is the availability. Anybody can get a gun. No gun laws in place. I remind you of Sandy Hook. And, of course, the American president had to say what he had to say, but we're still to see that change. And as you mentioned, we're probably not going to see it from any other parties. When we get back, we're going to take a closer look at the Syrian situation. Russia attacking Syria. First, the news. Welcome back. It is still Friday, October 2nd, 2015. Still the morning edition, a very hectic morning. Joined in studio by I-24 News contributor Ami Kaufman, here with the news you missed while scanning the headlines. Actually, it's not the news you missed. It's anything that's worth to print, and it's a very mass morning, so to speak.
Always stuff worth to print.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Syria a bit and a bit of the confusion in Syria. I want to show you, first of all, this headline from RT, which is, of course, a Moscow-backed media outlet.
Russia Today.
Russia Today, thank you, RT. And look at the headline. It says, ISIS headquarters, command point, ammo depot destroyed by Russian military Syria night op. Now, of course, we're hearing about Russian forces stepping up their attacks in Syria. So they say that they are hitting ISIS.
And they've announced and they fait accompli that that's the ISIS headquarters, which is quite bizarre from a journalistic point of view.
Right.
How do we know this?
How do we know it?
This is the ISIS headquarters.
And who do we believe? Because
exactly.
Let's see, a Western a news agency, Reuters, of course. Let's check out this headline.
Right.
Russian warplanes target insurgents in Syria, but not Islamic State. The exact opposite. The exact. Who do you trust? Do you trust Russia Today? Do you trust Reuters? I don't know. I'm sure people might have their bias and might have,
definitely. And the Syrian and the FSA, the Free Syrian Army, which is a group that is supported by the United States, has also come out yesterday saying that 35 civilians 4 children were killed.
A lot of civilians were killed.
Were killed in these attacks. So it's
and
hard.
The Russians are saying, by the way, that those civilians died before their attacks began in Syria. So who do you trust in that as well?
To me, the thing that's so heartbreaking, and I have to say, is that who else is going to be bombing Syrian civilians now? Who's not bombing Syrian civilians?
I'll give you, I'm glad you brought that, because one quick update that I want before we move on to the next topic is that hundreds of Iranian troops have already arrived in Syria to join a major ground offensive in support of President Bashar.
Hundreds of
Iranians are now on the ground as well in Syria,
and that's
according to Reuters.
According to Reuters, it's something I'm sure that Israel is looking at very, very closely.
Yes. Okay. Please. You know, sometimes things are kind of right under your nose. Or you never looked even really close where they really should be. And now we're going to talk about Nefertiti, the iconic queen of past queen of Egypt.
Everybody knows who Nefertiti
she might have been. She might have been actually buried in Tutankhamun's tomb. And I think we have a report about that.
No. Then first we need to see the report and then explain. Let's see.
The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in Luxor's Valley of the Kings in 1922 was one of the greatest historical discoveries of all time. But Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves believes he's found one even better, and right next door.
There may be another doorway behind the west wall of the burial chamber. There may be another doorway behind the north wall of the burial chamber.
The art and design on those walls, majestic gold and white frescoes, is more the style favoured by a queen than a king. And Reeves has a good idea which one. 14th century BC beauty Queen Nefertiti, who also happens to be King Tut's stepmother. It's a daring theory Reeves defended at a press conference of Egyptian officials and colleagues on Thursday.
Originally, this entire wall was painted and decorated in order to make people think there was nothing further beyond.
The Egyptian Minister of Antiquities is increasingly convinced that they may find something, although not necessarily the blackened mummy of Nefertiti.
Before, if I had to give a percentage, I would have said 50%. Today I can say there is a 70% chance that we find something.
Using a non-invasive radar from Japan to scan the chamber's walls, Reeves will be able to put his theory to the test in the coming months.
I'm confused, so this is the time to go straight to Cairo, where we're being joined live by Jake Wirtschafter, I-24 News contributor. Jake, good morning to you. Okay.
Good morning.
Okay. So, who was she? What is this theory claiming, and why does Reeves seem to be battling with an Egyptian minister?
Yeah, the interesting thing that was missing from the video report and some of the newspaper reports, which I think is telling, is that I think the real bombshell out of the press conference yesterday is that Reeves further articulated and expanded his theory to say that he believes that Nefertiti was a pharaoh, that her name was Seknane, and that she ruled Egypt for about 2 years in the turbulent period after Akhenamun died, and that she tried to continue with the monotheistic shift in Egyptian religious practices that her husband had initiated. This was a crazy period in Egyptian history. It explains the disarray in the tombs, and I think it helps account for the confusion among journalists in trying to explain what the heck is going on here.
No, I mean, what I love about that you know, we buried the lead, but you brought it straight up. If she was a pharaoh, which of course I tend to believe, and this is something, if I were Hillary Clinton, I would use this in my campaign. But that said, where does it stand when it comes to Reeves and his expedition? Because he keeps saying she may be buried here, et cetera, et cetera. What is the next phase here?
Egypt is ready for Nefertiti. Look, this country needs a tourism business, and all the interest that it generates is great for this country. There was a natural gas finding here, a couple weeks ago, bigger than the one that was found in Israel. Listen, between energy and tourism, there could be a recovery here. So you are seeing the shift in what Egyptian officials are saying about this, because even if the former Minister of Antiquities, Zaki Hawass, who everybody knows from the Discovery Channel, or is it History Channel, and the Chasing Mummy show.
Right.
I mean, Zaki Hawass is from this earlier generation of Egyptian archaeologists, and he, of course, believes that it's simply impossible. Well, the current minister, El Damadi, he's getting behind this because the interest in Egypt, the Japanese participation, this is good for business here.
Right. Jake Wirtschafter from Cairo joining us live. Thank you. We'll be following up on Nefertiti, who I'm voting for her as pharaoh. Thank you for joining us this morning. Ami, yes.
Ready for Nefertiti.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah, just quickly update that in Afghanistan, 11 people were killed in the crash of a U.S. military plane, killing all the 11 people on board. That was at a Jalalabad airfield. But the Taliban are claiming that they're the ones that shot it down. And again, you know, different reports, a lot of confusion. But the American Army is saying that this is just a regular, accident
crash.
And a crash. Unfortunate crash. 11 people died. 5 of them are soldiers. 6 were civilian contractors.
And reminding people again, as you said yesterday, Afghanistan seems like it's turning back to square one in 2001. Thank you, Ami Kaufman. We are joined in studio also. And I made a mistake and did not introduce her before, and it's Big Faux Pas by Tal Shalev. Because it's the bit of the show that actually lifts this very, very grim morning of a lot of news, but very sad news. So Tal Shalev is here with us, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent, for a little lighter note of what politicians were doing on Instagram. Take it away.
Well, it's interesting that you left me on the sidelines
because
we're going to talk about the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. You and I, of course, are very envious. Or
incredibly
especially,
so.
I don't know about you. I've been very envious the whole week. But as I've been telling you, and you have been absorbing, the real deal in New York at the UN General Assembly is behind the scenes.
Yes.
And lucky for us, the UN General Assembly was presented quite well on Instagram with a lot of world leaders giving us an insight. So let's start with, of course, the one and only. We adore him. We admire him. He's our idol, Pete Souza, official White House photographer, who posts this photo.
Tal, I just want to tell you, as you know, that when I ever see a Pete Souza thing and anywhere on social media, I tag you. Yes.
Yes,
okay.
that is correct.
Yeah. Okay,
if we would only know.
Yeah.
Giving his speech, President Obama giving his speech at the United Nations, but more interesting photos. The next one.
That's what this is what actually the UNGA was all about, folks.
Definitely.
Yeah, nice.
And that's a good photo because basically you can see it looks like Obama and Kerry are trying to persuade Putin to do something, and Putin is like looking at them. Yeah, right. No. But also, you know, there against the backdrop of the whole Syrian situation, there were reports last week that Russia, Iran, Iraq, and Syria will all be cooperating on intel. So this photo is very interesting because it's a photo of Obama speaking with Iraqi Prime Minister al-Abadi during a pull-aside meeting. Obama had only 4 official meetings during his visit to New York, so this is a pull-aside meeting.
Nice.
Probably very important one. But of course, other world leaders, the one and only
Angela.
Angela.
I'm sorry. I will say this again. I know we have an infatuation with King Abdullah, but I am very much in love with Angela Merkel as of late.
You're allowed to do that.
I'm allowed to do
You're
that.
Allowed
okay,
to do
thank
that.
you. Yes, Angela. That was Angela Merkel.
But look at the next photo by Angela Merkel.
Okay.
I think it's like Abbey Road.
It is Abbey Road.
Turtle Bay version.
It is. Look at. First of all, let's pause on this for a second. I love a woman leader that basically is leading the way for men. Okay, come on, she is. It's that. She's the woman in the middle. There you go.
That's
true. Like John Lennon.
Like John Lennon, who was, we know, the most talented one. Yeah, so there's that.
Okay, so next on, the UNGA was supposed we're supposed to go now to Zarif, I think?
Zarif.
Zarif? Are we going to Zarif? Okay, we can, okay.
Yes.
Next on, Zarif, Rouhani, they were supposed to be the stars of this UNGA.
Yeah, what happened?
Well,
Syria
Putin,
happened.
yeah. I think they're getting something in return. I mean, they got their worthwhile. But Rouhani had his high-level meetings. Of course, there was a lot of discussion about will Rouhani be meeting President Obama. That didn't happen. There was a historic handshake between Obama and Zarif, but that wasn't on camera. Do you have another photo from Zarif?
Maybe we have another photo.
Do we?
No,
okay.
We're moving along.
Let's see what our next photo is.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Sisi and King Abdallah. Also, Sisi actually was quite ignored. Egyptian president during the you didn't even hear any of the top leaders mention Egypt in any respect.
Very true. Yeah.
He probably shares feelings with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas being ignored. Next photo.
And we have a report on this.
Oh no, we don't have a report. Okay, so now we're going to the video from King Abdallah. Of course, the one and only. I would not miss that at all.
Okay.
Let's see, King
We
Abdallah.
got confused
His
a bit
Majesty
because we're...
King Abdullah ibn al-Hussein, King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and to invite His Majesty to address the Assembly.
Okay, but Abdallah didn't arrive alone. He arrived with my favorite member
of the Jordanian royal family.
The prince.
The prince.
And the prince, there's a photo of the prince who also, he posted himself attending His Majesty's speech at the UNJ. But
I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. I need to pause.
Which one is he?
Oh, come on. See, you're still not a chick.
Yeah, you're not
listening.
listening.
You're not a chick. It's the young guy there at the front with the papers.
With the papers?
Yes.
Wow.
Once he will be king.
Wow.
He will. This gorgeous young thing
And if
will
he
be king.
is wise, he will marry me.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
I think, you know, since Rania is Palestinian, maybe it's time, like, to strengthen the relationship, the bilateral ties.
I think the bilateral will be strengthened if Charles Shalev marries a Jordanian prince.
Prince, definitely. But the whole family actually went. As Queen Rania posted the photo of the whole family having a family lunch in New York.
Look, they look like us.
Yeah.
They look like real people.
Didn't say what restaurant, though?
Yeah, what restaurant was that?
No, they didn't say.
Security reasons?
Yeah, security
what do we
reasons.
think they're having?
Actually, there's an interesting story.
It looks Italian, like focaccia.
Italian, so it might be Serafina. You know what happened to Netanyahu at Serafina? Netanyahu wanted to book a place at Serafina, but then he discovered that the Pakistani president was just eating there, and he couldn't. He had to cancel his reservation because it would be too awkward.
I'm sure there were tears flowing somewhere at the Prime Minister's entourage that Serafina was skipped from the itinerary.
I'm sure he found a different good Italian restaurant to have. Yes. There's enough in New York to go around for everyone. Sisi also had a photo with Ban Ki-moon, with the UN, even though he was ignored. But another player, not really player, former New York mayor,
right.
Michael Bloomberg.
Okay.
You know, rumor has it, he wants to be president, right? There's a rumor that he might be running again as an independent candidate in 2016.
2016 already?
Yeah, in 2016. So it's interesting to see that he posted 2 photos of him meeting with world leaders, maybe looking ahead, A, with Angela Merkel, and B, with his good friend, François Hollande.
Wow. Yeah. So Bloomberg in this, it's all like pull-aside Instagrams and pull-aside meetings.
But it looks like, I have to give it to Bloomberg, that just being mayor of New York, you basically rule the world. Everyone, he is friends with everyone of the world politicians and world leaders. Everyone that has a birthday, he posts a special greeting on Instagram, and he maintains very good relationships with everyone, including our own Israeli Prime Minister.
The Israeli Prime Minister. I'm wondering really, what is the better job, President of the United States or Mayor of New York?
I think Mayor of New
York.
Mayor of New York. You don't have to visit all these.
I don't know.
Okay, moving on to our favorite woman.
We are doing our favorite woman? Okay, so our favorite woman was also visiting New York, and she, if we can just see the photos while I speak, first of all, we have a video. Let's see the video.
Video, I'm sorry. Video of Michelle Obama. It's Friday, we're all confused.
It's not Michelle Obama. You'll see, it's a surprise.
Surprise video.
Okay, no
apparently
video.
we don't have a video.
Okay, do we have a photo?
That was a Netanyahu moment of silence. Wait, the video's coming up. I looked straight into the camera. Let's see it.
I'd like for you all to give it up for the First Lady.
All the married ladies?
All the married ladies, all the single ladies, all the married ladies.
Yeah.
During this event, the Global Citizen Festival, which is a cool festival in Central Park, Michelle Obama announced a new campaign to raise awareness to uneducated girls in the world. And
she told them to beat boys.
It's a very cool campaign.
Yeah.
What you do is you post what you learned in school. So this is the first photo. Michelle Obama in school. I learned how to speak for ourselves, and probably next week we'll show the celebs.
Michelle Obama, I'm glad that this is a new campaign. It is Friday. It's the end of this bit of the show. Stay with us. Coming up, the best of the week that was in the morning edition. Stay with I-24 News for all the news of the day.